Hello, and welcome again to another edition of the GreenBaje podcast. As always, that is AJ. Well, not always, but you know what I mean. That's AJ. He's the green. I'm Ken. I'm the beige, and we are here for the 12th edition of this season 4 of the GreenBaje podcast. AJ, how's it going, my brother?
I'm doing all right. I apologize since I was the one that kept this a bit delayed. Just had some personal matters to deal with the wife, but I'm good generally though. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Life is busy. This has been an extremely busy Christmas season for me,
Mm.
busier than usual, I have to say. Because they've had my church, we've had Christmas program that I
Oh yeah, how did
usually
it go?
plan. It went pretty well. As I've heard that this one was our best yet, and it was our
Okay.
most difficult yet because this one we had 4 weeks to prepare,
Yeah.
but we were able to execute. So we are very thankful about that. Then last
That's
weekend I had to
awesome.
play a wedding. This
Mm.
weekend I have to. There's a special program at church I have to play for, and then there's another one on the 23rd that I have to play in the morning and the evening. So it's been a very busy festive season
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
But I give thanks. I always enjoy the opportunity to play some music, and especially with the wedding, it gave me an opportunity to play some things that were not gospel. So that was fun.
Makes sense.
That was fun. So yeah, so let's get into today's episode. Today's episode is called "We Shall Overcome." For those of us who are of Caribbean descent, especially, you know, Crossfire had a song where it started with this lyric: "We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday," and that has been a rallying cry for people all over the world, not just us that hail from the Caribbean, because whenever you are going through something, that is the thing that most people tell themselves. Eventually we shall overcome. We will get through this. We will get past this. And lots of teams have been telling themselves that this season, and apparently it's actually come true for some, and it has not come true for others. I saw something that I was a little bit curious about, AJ, and I'm probably going to bring it. It's not on the rundown, but I know that we need to start where we need to start, and where we need to start is with the whistle that was heard all around the NFL world this weekend. Off the rip, we have to talk about those Kansas City Chiefs, who conspired to find a way to lose the game against the Buffalo Bills. We're not going to talk about Buffalo just yet. We're going to focus on Kansas City off the rip. So the question is overcome. We shall overcome the refs because the Kansas City Chiefs are fuming after Kadarius Toney, who, well, I don't know why they did it this way. The NFL refs seem to be taking a page out of VAR because they allowed this play to develop. The entire play ran where Patrick Mahomes stepped up in the pocket. He threw the ball to Travis Kelce, who ran and rumbled down the field for quite a distance, and then saw Kadarius Toney out of the corner of his eye, lateraled the ball to him. Toney ran it in for a touchdown. Only then, for albeit a second, Toney was lined up offsides. Since then, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid both came out very strongly against the refs. And well, Andy Reid, tended to walk back some of his comments that he would have said in the heat of the moment. Patrick Mahomes continued to double down on his comments and had lots of negative things to say about the refs. Now, AJ, when we talked about this offline, not here in front of the people, you had a lot of comments to make, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to come to the people and tell them how you really feel about this Kansas City Chiefs and the way how they're talking about the refs at this point in time.
All right. Let me try to gather myself, obviously, because the manner in which I expressed myself was at that point was solely for the ears of grown men in a group chat who speak as brothers. I can't I don't in trying to be a little bit more mindful of where we are right now. Look, I'm I can't even say I'm disappointed. I'm actually kind of disgusted with how they've handled this. And this is taking into account that as human beings, you will be upset at the point in time, like when the play takes place or whatever. The thing is, so you mentioned that the play went on or whatever, but I actually saw a replay where a flag is thrown on the sideline as soon as the ball is snapped. I don't know if you saw that, obviously this is all over social media, as in the play itself, that final play, and then yeah, like I saw a flag being thrown, like it was a post that was shared. I can't remember where I saw it. So I don't think then that it was something that the refs backtracked on after letting the play happen. It seemed like the flag was actually thrown before that entire play developed. My annoyance with this entire thing, it comes from Patrick Mahomes, of course, because I've been saying, and I told y'all that this man has been losing it a bit. And when I say losing it, I mean losing his composure when it comes to these things. Like no one, again, let me do like Stephen A. I'm not talking about his greatness on the field. This is not me. I'm not disparaging him or trying to fuse this with what I think about his gameplay as a quarterback. Man is absolutely incredible. But when it comes to the mental aspect, he is becoming a bit of a whiny bee. And as the foremost, like the face of the NFL, basically, like you're going to get calls. You're going to get calls. That's the thing. Like the Chiefs get calls. I mean, you and I had this discussion previously. The Chiefs get calls. Whether or not we agree on how many they get is irrelevant, but we both agree that they do get calls. It happens, right? The thing is, this one is against you. Yes, you might be upset in the moment, but the way he carried on afterwards, especially talking to, like when he and Josh Allen were about to meet in the center and talking about this is the worst call I've ever seen. Bro, just congratulate the man and move on. Stop being a sourpuss. And then even afterwards, like how you mentioned that even Big Red himself like backtracked a little bit when he calmed down the next day. This man went on a media tour talking about how they interfered with a Hall of Fame players play that'll never be shown now because of somebody doing something that didn't interfere the play. Like what? For real? That's where we going with this? I every time things like this happen, I just kind of lose a little bit of respect for whoever is the whiner. And this took a couple of notches off Patrick Mahomes to me. This is disgusting behavior. Come on, bro. For real? You're not a rookie. Like you've been doing this. You're in a conversation for being the greatest of all time already. Like this is really how you carry on? For real? Because your guy doesn't know the rules? And even the I saw in the chat the clip that was shared today about that from Dan Orlovsky, where he noted about how many times that game Kadarius Toney was offsides. And I get it. So there's an argument now that, if the refs didn't call it before, why call it on that final play? However, if a man walks into a store, robs a store in front of a police officer doesn't arrest him. Does it 3 more times, and officer doesn't arrest him. Does it a 5th time, and then the officer arrests him. Who's at fault?
The robber.
Good. I rest my case. With that, I will let you rebut here, because I know this is going to be a little back and forth. So you go ahead. I don't need to spill everything right now.
So here's where this may be a little bit of a surprise. I come on this show to be a Kansas City Chiefs apologist. Yes, there's a red curtain behind me, but that is as far as it goes in this particular moment. Okay, so I don't know if we've had an opportunity to have this conversation, AJ, but I believe that when it comes to most matters, I try to be very consistent. I try to approach every situation the same. So when I am watching basketball, for example, I always get annoyed when I hear commentators especially start talking about how the refs call the games different in the playoffs versus the regular season. Because for me, a foul is a foul regardless of when it happens. When I'm watching football, soccer, If a man gives a foul and gets a yellow card, and he does the same thing again, I do not hold a second yellow card as a higher standard than the first. A yellow card is a yellow card, regardless of when it happens, and regardless of how many you have. So, if you, Kadarius Tony, refuse to line up on side, then it should be called every single time. So regardless of if they didn't call it before, it should have been called back then, and it should be called now. So I understand when Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs may be upset with the refs for calling a foul, because nobody wants a foul call on them, especially when the foul takes away a touchdown that could have won you the game. But if there was a week that they should not have been coming at the refs because of a call that they made, it was this week. They could have done this last week when the Packers got away with two pass interference calls in the last two pass plays of the game. Last week was the time that you could have come out with all fire and brimstone against the refs, because you can argue that you got hosed. Nobody can really say otherwise. I mean, they got a dodgy call right before the first pass interference call wasn't called. So yeah, okay. But I don't. This is not the week that you come out making noise against the refs. It just doesn't happen that way. So now you're saying that there was a flag thrown right at the beginning of the play, but from what I remember, from all of the football that I've been watching all of these years, if a man fault starts, you blow the play dead. If a man crosses into the neutral zone running unabated to the quarterback, you blow the play dead. So how is it that the player is offside and you throw a flag but you don't blow the play dead? Like, did they lose their whistles at that moment? That I don't understand. And from that perspective, I can understand why they'd be upset. Because again, if we are like, you and I are soccer fans, and one of the things that people are bemoaning right now is the fact that VAR has taken away a lot of the joy of the game, because when a man scores a goal and the guys are wheeling away a celebration, then you have to sit and wait 2 minutes for VAR to confirm that the goal is actually good. So apparently now we have to do that for the NFL as well, because a man can be offsides and the whole play can run, and then we come back and say, oh yeah, he was actually offsides. But as far as Kadarius Toney is concerned, the number of times that he lined up on the other side of the ball, as they said on WhatsApp, he should have been wearing a white jersey. He should not have been wearing red, because clearly he wants to be on the other side. So this all boils down. All of this anger, all of this fury, all of this furor that they are causing or calling right now is because the wide receivers in the Kansas City Chiefs just don't catch the damn ball. They're dropping too many. They don't get open. Patrick Mahomes can't do it all, and he's frustrated. So who can he take it out on that is not on his team? The refs.
Yeah, and you see, that is a point of contention for me. I don't respect that at all. Like, not everyone knows how to harness their disappointment and not let that turn into a blinding anger, a misguided anger at that. But I feel like in his situation, he has to be able to do that. There's no excuse like, you have to be mature enough to do that, because you're not just one of the premier players and the face of the league. Like, sorry, I was going to say, you're not just one of the premier players on that team. You are like the face of the league. Like, he has to have a bit more poise. And even if on the day, the thing is, even if the next day he had come out and he was a bit more humble in his responses towards the media that day, and kind of took some culpability, accepted some responsibility that, look, we weren't good enough. Like, I still don't like the call, but at the end of the day, these are things that we have to work on as a team, blah, blah, blah. But to go out and you know what, I can't even say that he didn't do that because we just saw like one soundbite from the interview. But still, to go on that little mini rant, it was just pathetic about, oh, it's a Hall of Fame player. And yes, Travis is going to get into the Hall of Fame. He's going to have a number of players on Sports Center highlights that will be included in his Hall of Fame. Like there's no end of footage for Travis Kelsey. Let's be real. This one play isn't going to matter. And you know what the thing is too? If they had won that game, how much time was left? This is a genuine question because I can't recall how much time was left after that. Was that like in the dying seconds, or
It
was there
was it
time?
was in it was in the dying seconds. I think that was the second down play.
I know it was a
So
second down, but did they have time for another play after that? Is what I was getting
they
at.
they ran two more plays.
Okay,
They went third down, and fourth down was the pass that fell incomplete.
okay, cool. So I missed after that play. I actually missed that. I had to get it from the laptop where I had it streaming. So I missed that afterward. That I didn't even know. But this works to my point even more. They had two more opportunities to win the game, Ken. You couldn't get it done. That's why I don't want to hear all this being and moaning about how the referees cost you the game. I don't want to hear that. On the day is one thing, and I would still be annoyed with that. But I would understand more if you calmed yourself down and understood that, look, this is something that we have to work on. We were not good enough. Our offense scored 17 points. That's not good enough.
Correct.
But the next day, he was still, and he was double and tripling down, bro. Nah, that's not good enough. Like I don't respect it at all. Like I legit, I'm not even joking. I don't respect it, and I've lost a cup. I'm not going to cast aspersions on his character, no, but I have lost a couple notches on my respect ladder for Patrick Mahomes as a competitor. Honestly,
Well, I mean, those are the breaks. If you're gonna behave in this manner, then people will have the right to respond to your behavior however they choose. But as I had mentioned earlier, the two teams that played in that game, and the other one was the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo came into this game, as far as everyone was concerned, dead and buried where the playoffs were concerned. They have to win out, basically. Their playoffs have already started. If they lose a game, chances are they're not going to be playing anything past the first week of January. But the question now is, on we have overcome, they overcame the Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills have kept their playoff hopes alive with the win. And yeah, when we look ahead to the games that they have coming up, they have a very tough game against the Bills. Sorry, against the Cowboys. But then things look a lot easier. There is the Chargers, who we'll talk about in a bit. Your Patriots, AJ, and then, well, they finish with a very tough game against the Dolphins. So now we're looking at Buffalo. Do we feel that the Buffalo, now that they've finally slayed the beast that is Patrick Mahomes, do we think that they have enough to get them into the playoffs?
I do think so. Just looking at the standings here, no, and I do think so. Like they're gonna beat the Patriots. Sad to say. Um, the Chargers, that's an easy dub too, especially with Justin Herbert. Oh, come on, Brandon Staley can coach his got a paper bag. Um, that's still two wins there, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it means that's at least 9-6. Cowboys, not sure about that. I'll give them the loss for the Cowboys, and then the other one was what, the Dolphins. I am
Mm-hmm.
I am can I'm not fully convinced that I can go at this point that I can go Dolphins. Like I wouldn't predict Dolphins right now. And I'm not saying I'm predicting the Bills either, but I'm saying more so that I think they stand a chance in that game. So they could have at least 3 wins, which would take them to 10 wins on the season. At 10-7, they stand a very good chance in the AFC. Because I like looking around, I don't see what other teams are going to keep up that kind of winning streak as well, going into in that this final push for a wild card spot. And you know what? Based off it could even come down to that final game being the toss up to decide the AFC between them and Miami. You never know. And if that is the case, I'm not going to put them out. I'm not going to hands down say Miami. I last night I was talking to one of my best friends, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about basically the teams that we didn't trust in the AFC. And there's a lot of teams that not trust in the AFC because despite all of this, right, Ken, I still think the Chiefs are the four runners to win the AFC, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, I still do because I can't really trust anyone else. And the only team I see having the closest potential to beating them, honestly, is Baltimore, and that's more because of what the Baltimore's defense is supposed to be and has been throughout the majority of the season, and not even more so the offense. I still have questions about the offense, but everyone else, I can still see the Chiefs beating them on the day, right? So this brought us to the Dolphins and how we didn't trust the Dolphins. Hours later, the Dolphins go and give up a lead and lose to the Titans. With these things in mind, Ken, you can understand if then I don't feel like saying, well, yeah, the Dolphins got this game against this big team and that. Nah, it will really come down to the day. It is really going to come down to the day because they could self-restore. I think. Sorry, that was I went off on a tangent. But to get back to the topic, I'm saying all of this to say that I don't even think that the AFC is decided at this point. The Bills are very much alive. They have at least 2 wins. I feel like 2 guaranteed wins. Now, granted, they do have kind of like an imposter syndrome where they play to the level of the team that they're playing. But I think the Patriots are so bad right now, and despite the fact that we won a game recently, much to my behest, I think that we are so bad. And with these rumors circulating now, because I saw a report coming out of Boston apparently that they're going to part ways with Belichick at the end of the season. Don't know if I want to believe it, but I think with all of this kind of thing stirring, guys could be their heads could be elsewhere. The Bills are going to win that game, and like I said, the Chargers are trash. So they still have 2 wins, and then they could end up playing Miami for the division. I'm not going to put them out of it. I think the Bills stand a very good chance, and even if they're in a position where they do lose to Miami, I still think that they will be good enough to get into a wild card spot.
Okay. So, I mean, as you said, in terms of the games that are on the schedule and the ones that you would expect them to win, you will expect them to beat your Patriots. Yes. And you would expect them to beat the Chargers because the Chargers, for all of the talent, I mean, oh my days, I don't understand how it is that a team that has so much talent in every position at every level is so bad. I complain weekly about my Saints and Pete Carmichael and the foolishness that he's doing. But apparently, Kellen Moore, but anyhow, we're not talking about the Chargers right now. We're talking about Buffalo. So, my concern with Buffalo is that Buffalo, we don't know who the Bills are. Unless you're going to just say that the Bills are maddeningly inconsistent and they cannot figure out how they're going to do what they're going to do because, all right, they won this game against the Chiefs, but this game was not fantastic offense by either team. And Buffalo's defenses look suspect as well in a lot of these games. They still don't run the football effectively. Outside of Stephon Diggs, they still don't have a credible second option. Gabe Davis is supposed to be that, but he gets less work right now than even what's his name from Tampa Bay that his wife has been complaining.
Godwin?
Yes, he gets less work than Chris Godwin. So I mean, what are we really talking about here with Buffalo? So I'm looking now at the playoff picture as it stands right now. There is the Browns, the Steelers, and the Colts that are in the wild card positions. On the bubble is the Texans, the Broncos, and the Bengals, who I all believe have a better chance of making it to the playoffs than the Bills. Regardless of if the Bills win 9 games, win 10 games, I still don't think that they're getting before at least 2 of the 4 teams or 5 teams, well, 6 teams that currently sit ahead of them. The Steelers, you never know what they could do. They could win a game or they could not win a game because they don't do good on offense, but somehow they still find a way to win games. The Browns, have been throwing quarterback after quarterback out there. The Colts, somehow they've been winning games. The Texans, well, the Texans, I think they have a very good shot at winning their division. And then the Broncos, who are one game back of the Chiefs. But we talk about the Broncos in a second. I don't trust the Bills. So even though they've beat the Chiefs, I am not ready to pencil them anywhere other than they beat the Chiefs. Because as you said, they play to the level of their opposition. They very well could turn up and lose to the Chargers. And then lose to the Dolphins as well. I don't trust them. I cannot trust Buffalo. It is just not possible.
I can't and I won't put up an argument for them against that. I refuse to. I completely understand. No, I was just looking at it with their games in isolation. I'd have to see what these remaining schedules are for the other contenders for that spot. But this the same way you just wax poetically about not trusting the Bills, that's how I feel about the Dolphins, bro. I'm not, I do not trust the Dolphins. And we remember we were talking in the chat the other day about their offensive weapons and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that Jalen Waddle is the fourth best offensive player in that scheme, in that system. And they lose to Tennessee last night. I mean, it feels like they're becoming like the Bills, where they're a chameleon, where they're just going to mimic their surroundings. If they're playing a mediocre team, they're going to be mediocre. If they're playing a team like the Chiefs where Patty Mahomes is probably going to be slinging it, then Tua can start slinging it all about too. It I don't I There's not much of a difference to me between the Bills and Dolphins, except for height. I think the
Mm.
Bills were on a high a few years ago and are trending downwards. So people are looking at that and saying, well, yeah, we can't trust the Bills. And the Dolphins never reached there. They never got that high. Obviously, like they've not been to an AFC championship and lost in overtime because they couldn't get the ball back and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But they have been. It's been inconsistent. It's been up and down. But I don't think the Dolphins are trending in the right direction either. I do not see much difference between either of these teams, Ken, except for the roster construction.
Mm.
And to your point about the Bills, right? This is just a funny anecdote, but I feel like the Bills have this thing every single season where since Stephon Diggs has been there, he's the outright number one. And then like you mentioned Gabe Davis, but it's like isn't it like the Shakir guy that's taking over now? So every year it seems that another receiver is kind of like takes over as their number two. Like they always have somebody else. So there's not like a necessarily a 1-2 punch. It's Stephon Diggs, and then everybody else after that would get some work at certain points. That's how it kind of always seems to me with them. But yeah, I that's kind of why I ended what I initially said by saying I don't even think the AFC is wrapped up because we talking about them getting into the wild card spot, but I still feel like they could win this division. That's how little I trust Miami.
But I get it. I get it. And for me, the biggest disappointment for Miami was the defense last night because the defense, AJ. So we always talk about how fantasy is a cruel mistress, right? I lost a fantasy matchup last night because of the Dolphins defense. If they held serve and stopped two touchdowns from happening, I win. I win. No, they could not do that. And my opponent had Jason Sanders, the Dolphins kicker. I was good as green when they had the fumble in the fourth quarter. I was up, and then they allowed two touchdowns to score, and I lost. I don't gamble, but I can imagine how the gamblers feel when you're riding the over, and then all of a sudden, things go the other way, and you lose, and your money is down the drain. So yeah, I still have more faith in Miami than I have in Buffalo. I do not anticipate that Buffalo comes back to win the division because they have just been too poor. But anything is possible. What we have seen is that you can overcome anything in the 2023 NFL, just like Denver. Because Denver is where we're coming next. Denver seemed to be on the road to overcoming a historically bad start. From 1-5 to 7-6, and 1 game out of the lead for the division, because if you remember, these Denver Broncos, well, they split the season series with the Kansas City Chiefs. But the way how things are going right now, you would not anticipate that the Chiefs are going to be the ones. If these two teams draw level, can you think that Denver all of a sudden is not going to win the division? Like, they gave us 70 points to the aforementioned Dolphins. And now all of a sudden nobody can score on them. So I'm asking you, AJ, is Denver going to overcome this historic bad start and make it to the playoffs?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. And it has a lot to do with what you just outlined in the previous segment, where you kind of like mentioned all of the other teams who could potentially make it. Like the entire AFC North is above 500. No, no. Granted, the only reason I have this much faith in the Bills is because, and not to go back to that, but it's just because I think that the division is still wide open. And you know, and I feel like I need to mention this. You know who Miami plays in their last 3 games? They have the Jets, then they have the Cowboys, the Ravens, and then the Bills. This is what I'm saying. This division is still open. When it comes to the Broncos, there's no way I see the Chiefs losing this division. So we're looking at a wild card spot, right? And I still
Mm-hmm.
think they are too far behind. I mean, I'd have to see their schedule and the schedule of the other teams.
I
But
can give you this schedule right now because I'm looking
yeah,
at it. The hardest game that they still have to play is
mhm.
this week against the Lions.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking
Then
at.
they play the Patriots, the Chargers, and the Raiders.
Okay, so it is 3 winnable games, 3 very winnable
Mm-hmm.
games. I give them that, but I don't know, Ken. Maybe it's just me not wanting to believe the Cinderella story. I find it hard to believe that they really come back from what they were after it was what 6 games, yeah, to get
Mm-hmm.
into a wild card slot ahead of all of these other teams, especially like other teams in the North. Um, Even in the South, we have what is 3 teams tied on their similar record, 7-6 in the South as well. I don't know. It feels like they do have a very promising schedule for them. I just can't buy into it yet. I need to see all the schedules. I need to see all the schedules because there's no way I'm gonna, even though they're 1 game out of first place. There's no way I'm gonna put them over the Chiefs. They, yeah, you know I'm not a big Chiefs fan, but at the same time, like the Chiefs would have to lose this division for me to stop picking them to win the division.
Mm. Well, I mean, I can't argue against that, but I believe that the Denver Broncos have enough to make it into the playoffs as a wild card. Because I do believe that there is going to be a moving and shaking above them. Because there's no way, AJ, that the Browns, the Steelers, and the Bengals. I mean, I'm probably giving away a little bit here, but no way that all 3 of these teams make it into the playoffs along with Baltimore.
Oh
The
yeah, for sure,
AFC
yeah,
AFC North is not sweeping the playoffs.
yeah.
So that gives an opportunity for the Texans to get in because I believe in the Texans more than I believe in the Colts. I mean, all right, I could just stick a pin here on the AFC West and let me talk about the South.
Cool.
Because the South, right now, if you talk about a division that's wide open, it is the AFC South. We know that Trevor Lawrence right now is playing with a high ankle sprain that he got 2 weeks ago when his lineman stepped on his ankle, stepped on his foot, and somehow he was able to gut it out and get out there and play a game this weekend. But I don't believe that he, hobbled as he is going to be good enough to get the Jaguars to the division crown. I believe that Houston is the team best positioned to win this division. The Colts are fool's gold. The Colts right now are out here telling a whole lot of lies, trying to make people believe that they're a good team. They're not a good team. And they were had the issue with Jonathan Taylor to begin the season because he wanted his money and they didn't want to pay him. And then they decided, well, we're gonna pay him something, and then he came in, and then he got hurt, and now he had to go get surgery, so now he's out for a couple of weeks easily. That's a problem. Their starting quarterback is out as well, so I don't see that the Colts have enough to get them into the playoffs. Right now, they are sitting as the seventh seed. They're going to fall out. And then, so I have Houston going to the top of the division. The Colts are going to drop out. So then now that brings me right back to the West. The Broncos. I believe that the Broncos, as much as I have been public with how much I do not care anymore for the Broncos head coach, one Sean Payton, because of how he left my Saints, I cannot be so petty as to not acknowledge the job that he has done in turning around this franchise, even from week 6. From being 1-5 and having just shipped 70 points to the Miami Dolphins, he and Vance Joseph especially have turned this entire franchise around to the point where they are playing some of the best football in the NFL. Russ has been able to keep his turnovers to a minimum. He's using his legs a lot more. And people here in the Mile High City are actually starting to, well, not starting to, they have gotten behind the team again. I have one of my co-workers who weekly tells me, it's not too late. You can come and join the Broncos bandwagon. And I told him, absolutely not. Not until, at least not until this head coach leaves. I let him know that I went to the parade for the Nuggets, but if somehow the Broncos were to win the Super Bowl on the day of the parade, I'm taking my behind to work. I'm not going to that parade. Go to that parade for what? I'm not out here to celebrate them. So yeah, to land the plane, I believe that Denver is going to get him because I see some shaking happening between the AFC North and the AFC South, and a spot is going to open up that Denver is going to be able to slide in there.
You know something? You know something? I don't normally do this. I don't normally change my mind on the show in the same segment in the same. But I started looking at like final run-ins, remaining games for some of these teams, and like after you mentioned the Texans, and I looked up who they play. The Texans have 3 games that are not walkovers, and given the fact that they're not necessarily like a division champion from last year, like it's kind of really like what they show up and do on the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because before we could have said, this team actually looking good to take the division, but then they scored 6 points and lost to the Jets. So at this point, I'm not really to coronate them as the new kings of the South. And their schedule was it
Titans,
like
Browns, Titans, Colts.
there we go. So I don't know, Ken. I can't do it with I can't put that much faith in them. I agree with you on the Colts, so I'm not going to go more into that. The Steelers, I think they're trending downwards. So when I don't see them bouncing back enough to me, I honestly think this is the year that they miss out. I oddly enough, I still have enough faith in the Browns to be able to make it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just like looking at it, and I don't know, I think Cincinnati's fairy tale is going to be over eventually. I don't see them making it either. So looking at it in those 3 spots, based on how things go, and I just said Buffalo. I'm not necessarily changing my mind on Buffalo. So Buffalo or Miami is making that one of the two of them. I could see the Browns. it looks like the third spot I have to give to Denver just based on the ease of their remaining schedule. I don't see how they lose to any of these teams because, as you mentioned, they're actually playing really well right now. Like things seem to be clicking a lot more. I don't see how they lose. They have 3 games that are winnable games for them. Should be winnable games. And even in a situation where it's just really tight. If they do drop one, it's still not impossible, but I don't expect them to drop 3 of those 4 games, is essentially what I'm saying. So I might have to give them a bit more credit and believe in it. I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence. No, because it's like if they don't make it, I wouldn't be surprised because the competition for those wildcard spots are very stiff. Like to get into the FC wildcard, like it's very stiff. But if they do make it, I'd understand because they got 3 teams that they should be batting up.
So you just said about the Bengals, right? Which kind of jumped the shark a little bit because that was the next one I have for you. Because Cincinnati, they've been here saying that we can overcome the injuries. Jamar Chase, he's been banged up a bit this season. He missed. I think he missed a couple of games. We know that Joe Burr, he is injured. He is done for the year because he has torn a ligament in his wrist. But these pesky Bengals refuse to go away. And that is all based on the play of their backup quarterback, Mr. Jake Browning. So, let's recap. Browning, he played, I'm trying to remember what was the first game he played this season. Right, so the last game that Joe Burrow played was when they lost 20-34 to the Baltimore Ravens. So Browning was the starter from the game against the Bengals, and he did not have a very good game. He went 19 of 26 for 227 yards, 1 touchdown, 1
The game against the Steelers, you mean? Because you said Bengals.
Against the Steelers.
The Steelers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, against the Steelers. They lost that game, 16-10. Somehow, Steelers just keep winning games. But then, Browning outplayed Trevor Lawrence up until Trevor Lawrence got hurt. 32 of 37 for 354 yards and a touchdown. And they won the game 34-31. The next week, which was this week just passed, they played against the Indianapolis Colts. And Jay Browning, again, 18 of 24, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns. 1 pick. Jay Browning is telling Cincinnati fans, don't worry about it. You can jump on my back. I can take you guys into the playoffs. So, AJ, I know you kind of mentioned it just now. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear you. Are the Cincinnati Bengals going to overcome these injuries and get into the playoffs?
No, sir. No, they're not. I don't see it, Ken. This is not a situation where they're already in pole position and they just need to like hold on for a few more games. They're battling a number of teams in the AFC, and I'm not ready to give Jake Browning those kinds of brownie points and say that he can be the one to lead them. So they have the remaining 4 games are they're at home to the Vikings, then they go to Pittsburgh, they go to Kansas City, and then they're at home to the Browns. Nah, at best they could come out of this 2-2, and I still think they're going to be 1-3, personally. Vikings are the only team I can see them potentially beating there. I honestly think everything else is a loss. So no, I don't think they're going to overcome those injuries.
Okay.
I don't. And based on my breakdown previously of the other teams and their schedules, I think even if the Bengals were to surprise me and win a game more than I expect, because I'm putting them at 1-3. I think they lose their last 3 games. I do think the Steelers beat them again in Pittsburgh. They're going to lose in Kansas City, and then in that final game against the Browns, with nothing much to play for, and with the Browns scrapping because they're trying to get in, I think the Browns beat them as well. Even if Browning helps them to go, like they win 2 of those games, I still don't think it's enough to overcome the 3 teams that I outlined in the previous segment.
Okay. So right now they sit at 7-6. Like everybody in the AFC, with the exception of the Ravens, the Dolphins, and the Chiefs, sit at 7-6. almost. So when you take that into consideration, every win matters, and I believe that they beat the Vikings. I believe that they beat the Vikings this weekend as well. However, I don't think that the Steelers beat them. I can't see it. I cannot, as I sit here right now, I cannot see the Steelers beating the Bengals because their options at quarterback are Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky, neither of which are an option that anybody would want to have as one of your only two options at quarterback, especially this late in the season. So no, I don't see that being the case. But the biggest challenge though is when it's going to be cats versus dogs, Bengals versus the Browns in that last game of the season because the Browns have probably the best defense in the NFL. And when you have the best defense, then your offense doesn't need to be spectacular; it just needs to be good enough. And apparently, Cleveland has the same kind of offense like San Francisco. Because you can stay anybody back there as quarterback, and chances are you can probably have a chance to win based on the strength of the rest of the team. So yeah, I have not decided for myself if I think that Cincinnati overcomes the injuries and gets into the playoffs. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because just like you said, they could go 2-2. I don't think that they're going to beat Kansas City because Kansas City has way too much going on for them to have a letdown in that game. And especially now that Cincinnati is going to be coming without their star quarterback, Kansas City is going to want to put the foot on the throats and mash as hard as they can. So I think that they're going to find a way, even though they've not been playing very good football recently, that Kansas City is going to find a way to win that game. If for no other reason than they absolutely have to. But taking the others into consideration, anything is possible. Anything can happen with this team over these next 4 weeks. So no, I'm not gonna put them in, but I do believe that they have a chance because the way Jake Browning is playing, there are a lot of teams right now that wish he could start for them, even though he is Cincinnati's backup. All right, so we spend majority of the time talking about the AFC, and as I just mentioned, the AFC, they have what is it, 5 teams, 6 teams that are currently sit at 7-6. So anything can happen for them. Officially, only 2 teams are eliminated from playoff contention. Officially, the Carolina Panthers, who are 1-12, and then the New England Patriots, your Patriots, who are 3-10. Even the Arizona Cardinals, who are 3-10, they're still saying that they are on the bubble. I don't know what bubble, but they're on the bubble. So when we look over in the NFC, because like I said, we spent the entire show talking about the AFC so far. We're going to end with the NFC. The NFC playoff picture right now, on the bubble, they have 4 teams that are 6-7, and the team that is 7th is also 6-7. The Packers right now are in the last place of the playoff picture. And then it's the Rams, the Seahawks, the Falcons, the Saints, the Falcons, and the Saints, of course, because our division is so terrible. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they are also 6-7. So that is why, all of us still have a chance. Except for Carolina, who, just can't buy a win this season. But then when you look up to the top of the division, what was always the case is no longer. The Philadelphia Eagles, who were seemingly running away with the NFC, and most people had penciled in to be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl, they have fallen in 2 weeks. From not even 2 weeks, in 1 week, from the number 1 spot to number 5. Because in those 2 weeks, they lost to the they got smoked by the San Francisco 49ers, and then they got dumped thoroughly by the Dallas Cowboys, AJ's Dallas Cowboys, on Sunday night. So No, San Francisco, they have overcome the Eagles. They have moved into the pole position in the NFC. So AJ, we look at the teams that are at the top of the division, those who have the best records, because that's the only thing that matters. We have the 49ers at 10-3, the Cowboys at 10-3, the Eagles at 10-3. So do the 49ers take the number one seed in the NFC, or does somebody else come back and pip them?
No, it's the Niners. It's the Niners. At this point, yeah, I'm going to say I think that their defense is looking a little better, and that to me was like their main Achilles heel. That was the biggest problem that they were facing as the season was rolling on. Because obviously they have no problem with offense. We know that they have no problem with offense, but defensively they were looking a bit shaky. I think they're buttoning down on that a little bit. The Eagles were always flattering to deceive. I don't think any of us, even in the chat, were very like mesmerized by that. I mean, you have to give credit where it's due, but you could always see holes in their play, and I don't see them coming back now. And then I just think the 49ers have too much. Ken, now that they're in pole position, I don't see them relinquishing it. So I'm going to say that they stay on top. Let me see who they. Is the schedule even important there? I'll probably pick them to win. Cardinals, that should be a win, but you know how division games go, especially in this division. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to. I don't, they could very well lose to the Cardinals, but I don't see it happening. I'm not going to. I'm not going to just put down the Cardinals and say, yeah, this is a definite win. But I think the Niners will have enough to overcome that. Then they have the Ravens. I think that is their toughest game remaining. Well, actually, the Rams in the final week. That is a team that they usually always have the back and forth with that could potentially get a win off of them. But I don't know. At this point, I don't. Funny thing is, I don't see them going 4-0. I still think they lose. Yeah, I still think they lose one of these games. It could be the Ravens. It could be the Ravens. It could even be the Rams in the final week. But either way, man, either way, Ken, I do not see them giving up that top spot in the NFC. When was the last time? Like, just looking at their defense in the last few games since the 31-17 loss to the Bengals, which was in week 8.
Mm-hmm.
Defense has given up 3 points to the Jaguars, 14 to the Bucks, 13 to the Seahawks, 19 to the Eagles, and then 16 to the Seahawks again. I think they're good. They're good for my money.
Okay. So I am not. This is. I think this is the most interesting run in that we can have in the NFL, which is two teams at the top of their division, and then one team that has a number of divisional games still to play. So you said the Cardinals. The Cardinals no are not Josh Dobbs Cardinals because Kyler Murray is back. But I still don't think that the Cardinals will have enough to beat San Francisco. But the Ravens have everything to play for to try to secure that number one seed. That is going to be a very tough game. And then the Rams, well, the Rams have been playing so much better football recently, and they've been winning games. The Rams are going to be trying to get that wild card spot because obviously by that time we would expect that the 49ers will have the division wrapped up. So that's also going to be a tough out. So the 49ers very easily could go 2-2. And they're currently sitting at 10-3. 2-2 puts them at 12-5. 12-5 does not get it done. Because, well, before I get to that, to the because, let's look at the Cowboys. The Cowboys of all of these teams have the hardest, of these three teams, have the hardest running. They have the Bills, then they have the Dolphins, then they have the Lions. I mean, the Lions right now aren't looking like the Lions looked 3 weeks ago, but it's still a division-leading Lions team who will be hoping that, you know, their fortunes will turn around and they're rolling back into form heading into the playoffs. So that's going to be a very tough game. And then the Commanders at the Commanders, which is always a very difficult game for them. So honestly, even though right now, when we look at the playoff picture, the Cowboys sit at number two. I don't think that they keep that number two position. I believe that Philadelphia takes it from them, at least number two. Because when you look at what the Philadelphia Eagles have coming up on their schedule, well, this better be four wins. They have the Seahawks, they have the Giants home and away. Giants is the last game of the season, and between them, they have the Cardinals, who I just spoke about. Philadelphia, if you want to be taken seriously, if you want to be considered a Super Bowl contender, then you need to go out there and you need to stamp your authority on all four of these games. There's no way that Danny DeVito, Tommy DeVito should be beating you in either of these games because your team is far superior in every facet. And then Kyler Murray or Kyler Murray not, there's no way that you should be getting upset by the Cardinals. So Philadelphia, to me, even though they're right now sitting in the 5 seed, they actually have the easiest run in and best opportunity to reascend to the number one seed in the NFC.
Let me just piggyback off of that. Well, actually, just add to it. I 100% unequivocally agree with you. Because I was thinking that as you mentioned their schedule, right? If they want to be taken seriously, Philly has to win all four of these games. They have to go 4-0. If they even come out 3-1, I'm not even going to give them a chance. They have to win all four of these games,
Mm-hmm.
unquestionable. And you know what? You don't even have to trample all of them, but make sure you find a way to win all four of them.
Yes.
I completely agree with you there.
Yeah. So I mean, you allowed San Francisco to turn up against you dressed in all black. Not saying that they came for a funeral, but they came with the intent to bury you, and that's
Yeah,
exactly what they did.
them boys is looking sharp though. Them boys is looking sharp. Them boys is looking sharp though. They was ready. They were ready.
Yeah, they came out there with that black Air Force One energy
Yeah.
and
For real.
destroyed
For
Philadelphia.
real. For
And
real.
this is the team that you'll be telling yourself is the your biggest contender for the number one seed. So it's not just that you lost, it's how you lost. You were absolutely dismantled, and the expectation would be that you're going to see this team again in the playoffs. One of you right now will be saying, we are going to have to beat the other team to get in to the Super Bowl. Because you would expect that, whoever's first, Dallas is going to have to knock off one of them if they are going to have any dreams of getting there, if not both of them. And I don't think that Dallas really has what it takes to do such. I do not believe in Dallas enough to say Dallas is going to run the table and then get into the playoffs and win every game to win the Super Bowl. I don't believe in Dallas like that. As somebody said recently, just because you get a lot of turnovers doesn't mean you're good on defense. So we shall see what Dallas is made of when they come up against the sterner stuff over these next few weeks. But yeah, for me, this is Philadelphia's opportunity to prove to the world that they are better than they have been. Because all season long, we've had questions about Philadelphia. All season long. Now is their time.
Going back to last season too. Going back to last, you feel it wasn't tricking me last year. And granted, I did want them to win the Super Bowl. That's because they had a Grenadian on the team. But but nah, from last season too, Ken. And I feel I'm still waiting on them. I don't ever I won't ever say I'm not saying that they're overhyped or overrated. I didn't even get into all of that narrative. However other people want to put it. I'm just saying I'm still waiting on them to prove me something. You can tell that they're a well constructed team. They have some great leaders on the team. They have very good coaching. They have players all around. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I still am not convinced that they are where they think they should be.
Correct. Correct. What we do know though is these next 4 weeks are going to be a doozy. And well, we'll be back here next week. At least I know for sure. I'll be back here next week. hopefully you'll be back here next
As
week.
far as I know, I will be. Yes.
All right. But I know for sure though, on the 26th, I think now is as good a time as any to tell the folks. The 26th of December, the boys won't be here because just like most of you will be spending that time with your family because that's like the day after Christmas, we too will be. So unfortunately, we shall not be sitting here to argue or discuss what happened over that week. We shall be back the week after that as we get you ready for the playoffs. So, um, I think that's the only bit of housekeeping that we had, really and truly. So this is a good spot that we can end this week's episode, AJ. You know, this has been fun as always. We invite everyone to like this video, subscribe to the channel, tell a friend, hit the notification bell so that next time we're on next Tuesday, then you will be here with us as we look back at what occurred in the week of the NFL and look ahead to what is to come. Of course, I can't end the show without saying congratulations to the LA Lakers being the first in-season tournament champions in the NBA. They're currently in a dogfight with the Dallas Mavericks. 106-104 is the score. Um, so yeah, we'll see how that goes as well. But I think here's where I need to stop talking. So yeah, AJ, this is where we're going to end it. So as always, that is AJ. He is the green. I am Ken. I am the beige, and we will see you next time.